So people often ask, how do I know if I'm involved with a narcissist? I get the feeling that I am. Or I think my mom or my dad is a narcissist. How do we know? And when I get that question, one of the things that crosses my mind is you're wanting to know because you want to know what to do about it, how to respond to it. And one of the things I invite you to think about is that narcissism runs on a continuum. It's not like a yes-no kind of an experience. It runs on a continuum, and hopefully we all have some element of narcissism in us. It's what allows us sometimes to really push through, feel our identity, and just feel like we're self-important. And sometimes we feel overly self-important and need all the attention coming to our direction. And that's okay. That's just a part of being human. And yet sometimes, because of difficult things that have happened in our childhood or in our experience in life, we have developed a defense system. Think of narcissism as a defense system, and it's a defense system that is developed often from a very young age on, that is part of a deep felt insecurity. But when I say deeply felt, that doesn't mean the person that you might be suspecting has narcissism always is in tune with their insecurity. In fact, that's what makes narcissism so hard. It is that there's such a deep level of insecurity, and it's so threatening and intolerable to experience it. What happens is they develop this defense system around actually experiencing their insecurity and the fact that they don't actually feel filled up themselves. And they tend to rely, and I say they, it could be all of us. It could be you, or you wondering if you're narcissistic. I want to help talk about it in a less threatening, pathological way, because it is a defense system that gets hardened in us the longer it is in there and the more we don't recognize it. So if we think of it as a continuum, and the person that you're wondering about, that you're probably sensing that they do have some of those defense tendencies. So relax about, are they diagnosable or not? And just say, they really have some harsh tendencies, and there's tendencies that I really am picking up. It's probably true that they're there. And let me explain what that might mean. And that is, when we have a really insecure internal system and we've developed defenses, what happens is we don't feel our own insecurities, and we tend in a narcissistic condition to use other people to have our identity or our sense of self met. And so if you're asking that question, it may feel at times that by that person you feel a little used sometimes, or unseen, or that you feel kind of run over. And another sign of that is that individual often has a hard time seeing you. And so you might find yourself walking on eggshells with them, or I have to make them feel like the most important person, because if I wound them and they experience a sense of wounding or a sense of you've questioned them, that what happens when you have a narcissistic defense, that hits a threat system inside of them, or inside of us if it's us. And that really makes us power up. And so one of the indications is that instead of feeling my own insecurity, which hopefully we all feel, we want to be able to feel our own sense of narcissism and I feel good in the world. But we also need to be in touch to our own insecurities. Like, I feel a little insecure in the world. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Because both sides of this continuum need to exist in each one of us. And if you run on high on the narcissistic continuum, that's very, very hard to get in touch with that. So you tend to be pretty arrogant. You tend to have a sense of entitlement and sense of, I deserve this. An indication is you're going someplace and something happens. Somebody that struggles with narcissism, they feel a little like entitled for things, and often entitled for your attention and for your actions towards them. And that can be exhausting. And so one of the things I want to say, if you're out there going, it's like, is this person narcissistic? Say, what do you feel when you're around them? Do you feel like you have to disappear a little bit? Do you feel used? Do you feel less important? And if you do, I want you to have compassion for yourself. And I want you to think, this is hard, right? But one of the things I really want to help you do is you need to pay attention to yourself first. Because one of the things a narcissist can do unintentionally, sometimes very intentionally, but often unconsciously, is that they draw you out of yourselves and into them. So if you bring a complaint to a narcissist, I don't like the way you do this, a narcissist will feel that. Or somebody who's, let me be really clear, somebody who struggles with narcissistic tendencies or is in a very narcissistic state will feel that as a threat and will bow up. And in that, you could feel intimidated. You could feel like I have to back down, or I can't question you at all because maybe that threatens you so much to question you, you're going to feel that person in your life rigid up and get angry at you. And so what happens when we're in a relationship with somebody, whether it's our mother or our partner, a sibling, is that we learn to always sort of one down ourselves, step aside, or really more importantly, we learn to question ourselves. And so one of the reasons we're asking the question, is this person narcissistic, is we want to feel sane or we want to feel important. And we're in these patterns together that we often feel like we really struggle in that relationship. And the thing you'll notice too is it's very repetitive kind of behaviors together. So one of the things, the biggest thing I recommend, whether you think this person is narcissistic is less relevant. What's relevant is, are there patterns in your relationship that are making you feel sort of constantly questioned, constantly one down, or that at one level, the thing that's enticing about being involved with a narcissist is that in the beginning, they can tend to idolize somebody so much. They need people that idolize them, and that feels so good. So if that was you at the beginning of the relationship and it's a romantic relationship, and all of a sudden you're the most special person in the world, a narcissist can, with somebody with narcissistic tendencies, can kind of lure you in consciously. It's like, oh my God, if this person who is obviously so special and amazing and kind of stands above everybody loves me or is interested in me, I must feel that way. And that leaves us with some vulnerability to think, oh my gosh. But eventually that wears out, and unfortunately and often you become not the most valued, and then you can feel the devaluation happening. And we get kind of caught with, wait, don't you remember I'm this really valuable person? And we can get stuck in that relationship trying to prove that we're valuable. And let's say that's your parent. It may be, are you caught in this relationship where you're constantly trying to help that parent see that you're worthy? You're constantly trying to prove yourself. So if that's happening, like, attend to you, not so much the personality of the other person. And what I would suggest, the biggest thing to think about is how to hold your own, how to be inside yourself with that individual. And so instead of following their lead, and let's say you failed them one more time over and over and over again, our tendency is to say, hey, wait, no, let me prove to you I didn't fail you. Let me show you all the evidence in the past that I didn't fail you. Quit seeing me that way. If you think about it, what are we talking about? We're talking about how that person sees you. You're caught in this experience of how that person sees you. What I would invite you to do is get inside yourself, hold yourself. How do you see you? And then what we want to do is differentiate from them. And that means they can have this opinion that you failed them. And if you try with somebody who's really struggles with narcissism to prove you didn't fail them, it's going to be very, very hard to do. And you might do it in that one moment. But if you're constantly having to prove you didn't fail somebody, you got to wonder what's going on. So pull back inside, learn how to hold your own in saying, I see that's your experience, that's not mine, right? Another classic example is you bring a complaint and somebody who struggles with narcissism says, oh, you're just being too sensitive. You're ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. Quit seeing it that way. If you didn't see it that way, you wouldn't have those feelings. What I want you to know is what's happening is you having feelings of displeasure or having feelings may feel too threatening to somebody with a narcissistic defense. And they feel the threat. They feel it deeply in their core, in their amygdala, literally, and in their body. And instead of tolerating that feeling, they have to shut you down. And this is not conscious. This is an autopilot. So immediately it's, you're too sensitive. You're being ridiculous. You don't see it this way. And let me tell you the right way to see it. So as you notice, you don't exist in that dialogue, except you need to quit having feelings. So one of the reasons I like to talk about holding your own is, wait, you might see that as ridiculous. You might believe it's too sensitive, but for me, it really matters. So in other words, we're not going to argue with this person. Is it too sensitive? Yes, no. Don't get in the argument. Instead, pull inside yourself. You might see that as too sensitive. For me, I feel this really deeply and it's very important to me. So you're just learning to discriminate between that person's belief and your own and holding it. So I could talk all day about this. It's a really, really important topic. As a matter of fact, at Therapists Uncensored, Sue and I did a whole series on holding your own with difficult personalities. And we spoke deeply about the different various kinds of narcissism and spoke also about some borderline personality traits, because there's different types. In fact, you can find yourself falling on the narcissistic trait if you were too overly negative towards oneself. So it's an interesting thing. You can get pulled in a relationship kind of dynamic trap by that. We also talk about difficult personalities with borderline traits, etc., as well as if you're the one that are recognizing that you have some of these difficult traits, because we're all just human. So we might be in a relationship with somebody, or we might be the one with difficult traits, because we all are difficult. So we did a series at Therapists Uncensored about holding your own with difficult types of personalities, because it's all about kind of finding yourself and finding your own balance rather than diagnosing other people and trying to fix them. So check it out. You can look at the link below if you're interested in starting in our 5-episode series. All right, thanks for joining us, and see you around the bend.